Because if you're talking with each other the whole time, if you're not having lives outside of the video calls and the texting, you will completely depend on this person for everything.
How is dating going to be like as somebody that is married? You know, what is dating like for you guys?
Okay. So the general rule that I want to talk about with dating in the time of COVID-19 is you work with what you have and what you can. We block off time to just be together. I was reading this article in Vanity Fair and it was entitled Coronavirus Could Change Dating Forever. They interviewed Helen Fisher, who's an anthropologist and research fellow at the Kinsley Institute. Sabi niya, catastrophes push us to make our next step in life. That's what they do. You may have been vaguely aware that you want or need a partner, but you're busy at work, you're busy with your family, you've got your weekends with friends, etc. But now the need for another person is going to be very vivid and sometimes awful for a lot of people. All of these online dating apps kept upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. So today we wanted to talk about what will dating look like in the future?
I honestly think that it's going to be a little bit tougher to date because I think that people are going to be a little bit more reserved with letting people into their personal space. So how do you think it's going to go? Do you think that it's the opposite of the way I see it?
It's definitely the opposite.
Okay.
And here's why. Fisher says, what's interesting about this, not terribly new. In Jane Austen's day, you did have a good deal of conversation with somebody before you went to bed with them. And during this quarantine period, we're seeing the same thing, the emergence of a stage of courtship before sex and even before meeting the person face to face. So she says, so I actually think it's rather positive. And what they're saying is, ma-extend lang yung level of courtship. And the whole relationship will be predicated on your connection in conversation rather than in physical touch. Do you think that's a good thing?
I think that that's a great thing, and
Exactly.
and I hope that it does that. What the conversation from that I'm getting from the article is that these are people that met during the quarantine.
Yes.
What about people that meet after the quarantine? Do you think that this will affect the way that people date when they meet after the quarantine?
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's going to change. They were talking extensively in this article about how, courtship is going to happen. You're going to have to buy dinner for someone and exchange it in addresses. You're going to have, parang they were saying na, kailangan the couples should be able to negotiate with one another. Human beings have the capacity to adjust and adapt in so many different ways.
I think that the one thing that we are kind of leaving out here is the love language that people have. If acts of service or quality time, or words of affirmation, that is going to be completely okay. I think you can still survive on dating with those three. But with people like that like me, I am my secondary is touch. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, that's one of the sacrifices that
Exactly.
I feel like people in the date, and that's when and that's I think one of the filtration systems that you can have. If you really like this person, like, are you willing to stick out in this relationship, even though you can't be physically intimate with them?
The way that I see it, the way that that I kind of see how dating is now, is that if you are like for instance for me, my love language is touch. I think that we are all trying to learn the different ways that we are loved. Things are very, very different now. We are looking at it through a very different prism, so to say, and we're seeing the different ways of love in a very, very more understanding point of view.
When you look at it, that's really what relationships are all about, parts. I mean, when you go into a relationship, what you'll notice is that your partner doesn't have the same love language as you. they may have complementary love languages, but it's not the same as you. And so I think now we're learning to adjust to show our affections and our love in ways that don't necessarily feel natural to us, but is necessary.
Do you think that this will revive chivalry?
Yeah. I think that's what the article is saying also. That's a good thing. Conversations and courtship have become longer than what they used to. Have that relationship first and have those conversations and actually stick by with this person before you even think about physical intimacy or physical touch.
On the flip side of it, though, okay, do you think that people are going to be more cautious about it?
Human beings need human connection. That's natural, that's nature, and that's why we're so obsessed with physical touch, because physical touch is the easiest way for us to connect with people. But since we can't do that now, it has to start and end in conversation. So even the people who are not feeling comfortable with making deep connections right now, I don't think they'll feel the same way in a couple of months. Because, there's that human need for connection. You're going to want to have that connection one way or another.
So the way that I see dating now is if somebody is honest with you, regardless of it being in quarantine or not, I think that honesty is something that you can see, something that you can feel, and something that you can hear, regardless if that person's in front of you or not. Best perfect and a great example of this are long distance relationships. Before
Yes.
there were quarantines or anything like that, there were long distance relationships that have blossomed, that have also shown that they were nowhere near the type of relationships that they were. If long
Yeah.
distance relationships can work for some and not work for some, it's the same way with a quarantine distance relationship.
And I think also one of the things that we have to remember, especially people who are dating, relationships are a risk, whether it's online or in person. I always say, kahit anumang precautionary measures ang gagawin mo sa pag-ibig, lagi kang magkakaroon ng chance na masaktan at manakit. There's always that capacity, and you can't make this ECQ as just an excuse why it didn't work out, because as you mentioned, LDR people make it work.
In essence, LDR, you can always put that right next to SDR, socially distanced relationships. That's where we're at right now. Where if you guys are in an SDR, you are going through pretty much the same type of problems that LDRs are going through. Whenever I talk to my friends that were in LDRs, the one thing that they told me was the number one rule was not to make it feel like it was a hindrance.
Okay, so Erin Atayde, let's pretend
Okay.
that you're starting an SDR
Ooh.
with someone.
Oh man, I
What
wish.
are what do you think are the healthy ground rules that you guys could both operate by?
Obviously, I have no idea. So you can take my advice and just say Aaron has no idea what he's talking about. But I have thought of some rules that really come to mind. Obviously, I mean,
Sobrang sandbagger mo, Erin Atayde. Wala akong alam dito ha. Pero here's 100 options
yeah,
for you to check
I
out.
wrote a book. Like one,
Okay.
one I think is don't talk to each other the whole day, because you should, if you guys are in an SDR, you guys are texting the entire day, you kind of get a little bit too comfortable with it and you don't look forward to that allotted time where you guys are talking to each other.
And I also have to add, that keeps away from your productivity,
Yes.
right? And your brain could actually connect that I'm not being productive and it's because of this person. I like what you're saying. Basically, set packets of time where you're talking and spending time with one another, not only so that you'll have something to look forward to, but also so that you have something to talk about. And that's also a way, I think, for you to personally protect yourself and protect the other person from being overly dependent on you. Because if you're talking with each other the whole time, if you're not having lives outside of the video calls and the texting, you will completely depend on this person for everything. If you don't make a conscious effort to not be totally dependent on this person, you will be, because we are in the middle of a
Mm-hmm.
crisis.
Another thing that I would love to do if like I was in an SDR, set up a date night, like a real date night. The one thing that I did notice um, is there are no more small like actions of love. I think everything that you do for somebody that you love nowadays, it is all magnified.
Yeah, and even with small things, shows that you're thinking about the person throughout the day. And when you're in SDR, that's one of the things that you'd love for the person to do for you, right?
Again, SDRs are the way of the world right now, and the best thing that we can do is we can acknowledge that it's there, but it should not stop us from loving and finding love and trying to find love and you know being in a situation with people.
Inspired.
Huh?
Inspired yung Aaron Atayde with great ideas,
Yes,
inspired
I'm
with great
inspired with great
ideas.
ideas.
And as with adulting, guys, SDRs may be difficult, but it's doable. If
Yes.
you exert the right amount of effort, and if the other person is willing to extend the same amount of effort, it will always work out. Kung gusto, may paraan. Kung ayaw, laging may dahilan.
If you can find ways to show love in a time where you can't show love the way that you used to, that's the biggest move and that's the biggest show of love.
That's right. So I guess that's it for this episode of the podcast.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of SOS in the books. Thank you guys for joining us. If you haven't joined our Facebook group, please do search Shot of Sanity SOS Podcast on Facebook, as well as online at Pring and at Aaron Atayde for me on your social media sites. Thank you guys for joining. We'll see you guys next time. Peace, 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 peace.
Alam!